Hello and welcome to Mountain Patriot Homestead. This afternoon we are in the kitchen. I'm so glad you could join us. Now I do apologize for all the noises you'll hear around us. I've got a dog huffing over in the corner because it's doing some thundering outside. You may hear some equipment going in the background, geese honking. This is a farm and I do not have a sound studio. So you will hear noises in the background. I apologize in advance. If that bothers you, well, welcome to Mountain Patriot Homestead. So, as I said, I am in the kitchen going to be cooking up something today, and I just wanted to share where I got this recipe. Now, some of my favorite recipe books are those that are the little community recipe books. I don't know if places still do those anymore because I haven't seen anybody selling them in a long time. But used to, it was a common practice for school groups, church groups, auxiliary groups, any community group that was trying to raise money for their particular cause would get together. Everyone would submit recipes and they would print them off into the little community cookbooks. And what's so precious about these, especially if you can get one from your local community, is that you can look back at these recipes sometimes many years later, as in the one that I'm holding in my hand, and the names that you read through are people. For me, it's people that I grew up that were my elders as I was growing up, so I can look back and I recognize the names. Sometimes it may be my mama's name in here, but at the very least it's lots of neighbors and sometimes school teachers that I remember and people I went to church with. And so it's precious memories as well as the recipes. Now, the recipe that I'm going to be following today is so simple because it's only 3 ingredients. That's right, 3 ingredients, no flour. It'll be the first time that I'm following this recipe, so it'll kind of be an experiment for both of us. And I will share with you how it turns out because I'm interested in knowing too. Now, it is a pecan cookie recipe, and there's no fandangle name that goes along with it. It's just Pecan Cookies is all that it was called in this book. And I will share the name of the person that contributed that recipe to this book. That was Joanne Starnes, and she was a lady, as I said, most of these people in this book were people I remember because they were my elders. Miss Starnes actually just lived right down the road from us, and her son went to school with me. He was, I think, a grade ahead of me in school. So it's memories as well as anything else. But this cookbook happens to be my mama's old cookbook. I have one identical to it that she gave me, but this was hers. And as I was going through, I found, sometimes she would mark in there recipes that she particularly liked. It means my stove's ready, so I've got to get to cooking. But again, memories. And if you can find little community cookbooks like this, I suggest that you pick them up because a lot of times it's recipes you're not going to find anywhere else. It's going to be simple home cooks that have contributed those, and many times they're very delicious. So let's get on to baking these pecan cookies. As I said, this recipe is 3 ingredients. The first is 1 cup of packed brown sugar. If you have never used brown sugar before, if a recipe calls for packed brown sugar, that's exactly what it means. You put it into your measuring cup and you press it in, and when you dump it out, it's going to hold its shape just like this. See, it's actually packed, because if you just scooped it, you would have very much less brown sugar than what you have once it's packed. Now, the second ingredient is 1 egg white. 1. Now the unusual part about this is you don't whip it, you don't do anything special with it. It's just the egg white, and you just put it directly into that brown sugar. Now don't worry, you know how I am about wasting things. That egg yolk will not be wasted because my husband actually wants cornbread and milk for supper, so that will be an extra yolk in the cornbread batter. We'll just make it a little richer because I'm not throwing out the egg yolk. And the recipe just calls to mix up this white in with this brown sugar, and I'm just figuring that it means keep mixing it until it's incorporated. It does not say whip it. It actually says do not whip the egg white before you add it to the brown sugar. So I'm making sure I am not whipping it. I am just mixing and mixing and mixing until this brown sugar and egg white is completely incorporated. Now this caught my attention because it does not have any flour in it. And you know, there are so many people in this day and age that are looking for gluten-free type recipes. Well, this one doesn't have any flour. Now if you've got a nut allergy, I'm sorry, I guess you're in trouble then, but this is just that 1 cup of brown sugar, 1 egg white, and this is 2.5 cups of pecan bits. And it just says add them directly into that brown sugar. Now, I've got a feeling this is going to be some type of a thick dough by the time it gets mixed up in there, and that's going to take some elbow grease to get that mixed up in there because it is thick. So I'm just going to take some time to mix that up in there. Now I was thinking as I was looking over this recipe, some folks, if they don't have pecans, I guess you could substitute some other kind of nut, but because you know it, whenever I'm cooking, I tell y'all repeatedly, your kitchen, your rules. You use what you like, what you enjoy, and you know, don't let other people dictate to you how you work and use things in your kitchen. However, I will tell you that the first time that you use a recipe, if you use a recipe and you don't follow that recipe the first time you use it just to see how it's going to turn out, and you start making a bunch of substitutions, well, then when it's all done and it didn't turn out like you expected, don't blame the recipe, okay? If I have a recipe, I don't know, let's just say I have a recipe for something and it calls for onions, and instead of onions I substitute celery, and it calls for, maybe it calls for oregano and I substitute chili powder. Well, it's going to taste different, and it may not be a good kind of different. So, you know, I can't blame the recipe when it don't turn out like I expected it to. Well, that's about as incorporated as I can get it. Now, it still looks might crumbly to me. Maybe that's how it's supposed to look. I don't know. I've never made this before. So, the next thing it says to do is get it on a cookie sheet. Now, I took out a small one, but I may need to go to a bigger one because this made more than I thought it sounded like it was going to. So I think I'm going to get a bigger cookie sheet and a bigger silicone mat to put it on, and we'll go from there. So hold on just a moment and I'll be right back. Alright, here we go. I got me a bigger mat out because that oven, I just don't think it was going to cut it. So trying to figure out the best way to do this so you can see what in the world I'm doing. I don't think there's enough room, but we'll just try. And it says drop it on a greased cookie sheet, but I use these silicone mats for cooking cookies and that and pastries and that sort of thing, because that way I don't have to grease the pan, and I like that better because I do not like a greasy cookie. So I am using this silicone mat, and I am going to just drop it by spoonfuls onto here. Is what it says. Now I'm telling you, it looks a mite crumbly to me, but I'm just going to do what it says and we'll see. I may just be making a mess, I don't know, and if so, I apologize to Miss Starnes' recipe. We'll just have to see how it goes. Now I'm putting these kind of close together because I don't think they're going to spread. And if they spread, they might all go together, but I don't know that they're going to spread. I'm thinking they might just hump up and stay where they're at, but I don't know that. I might end up with a cookie bar instead of actual cookies. You know, that would be good too. You know, something else these would be good for is a pastry crust. You know, if you wanted to make a bar cookie and use this as your crust, I mean, that sounds pretty tasty itself. And if this turns out to be, if I make it into a total mess, it may just get reinvented into something else. I could see this being a crumble on top of a cobbler. You know, I mean, there's always way. That's why folks that if their recipe don't look just exactly like they thought it should, and they just, you know, throw a walleye bit and they want to throw it away and throw it in the garbage and be done with it. Well, okay. I mean, I've thrown a few fits myself before, but you know, when it comes to food, I've learned that there's very few things you can do to your food that can't be fixed. I mean, there's hacks. I think that's what it's called nowadays, hacks. We used to just call it fixing stuff, but they call it hacks now. But there's ways of repairing stuff or using it in different ways, even if you think you've made a total mess out of it, because I've done a lot of things that ain't turned out exactly like I thought I wanted it to, but you know, you just keep going. Ain't that life? Ain't that the way it goes? If things don't work out, you just roll with it and keep on going. See, I mean, like I said, I'm not sure that these are supposed to be this crumbly. I mean, maybe I was supposed to use a bigger egg white. I don't know, but my chickens lay pretty good sized eggs, so I don't know that I guess I could have used a duck egg or something like that and got a bigger one, and I have just a little bit in there. I don't even know that I'll use those as cookies. I may use them tomorrow morning and throw them into some pancake batter. That sounds pretty good too. So, may just save this and see that's the thing. You can take a little bit of something and throw it into something else and create a whole different dish. So, all right. So, this says, and I just noticed my oven is not at the right temperature. It's supposed to be set at 250, so I'm going to have to up it. I've got it at 225 for whatever reason. I must have thought I was smoking meat or something. So I've got to up the temperature to 250, and then once it's there, I'll bake these for 25 minutes at 250. So let me get this changed and get them in the oven, and in 25 minutes, which will be like, I can't snap, just a snap of time for you, and we'll be back and finish this recipe up. So hold on for me. While those are baking, I thought we'd visit for just a minute. This past weekend, normally I put out a full-length video over the weekend. I did not this past weekend because it was kind of a busy weekend, more so than normal. We ended up going to Baker Creek Seed Company's Spring Festival. I think that's what it's called, Spring Festival. And we spent Sunday walking around there. Now, by spent, I mean 2 hours. It took us as long to get there as it did to walk around. My husband laughed because he knows how I am. I'm not a shopper, and I'm not a big crowd type person. And so we went up there and I walked around, I listened to the music, I walked through the vending, and I looked at what I needed to see. I didn't need to buy any seeds because I've got enough seeds. I didn't need any seeds right now. So I didn't buy any seeds, but as we were walking through the vendors, I noticed my daddy was a carpenter, so anything made out of wood catches my attention immediately. And there was an older gentleman that was there, one of the vendors, that had a booth that was handmade wooden toys. Well, you don't see handmade wooden toys much anymore, so I went right to that table because that caught my attention. And he started telling his story about how everybody used to make wooden toys in this area, but now he's about the only one that he knows left. And he was showing us the different toys. And of course, as we're talking, he is playing with this top that he made, and he shows this top and how it spins, and I mean perfectly balanced. And I bet it went for 5 minutes. It just sit there and spun and spun and spun. Beautiful balance on this thing. And this little girl that was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old, I kind of look back, and she's coming up beside me, and her dad's behind her, and she's just mesmerized by this top. And he had been telling us he's 76 years old, and he said, I've got 4 more years before I can retire. And I was thinking to myself, wow, I really hope somebody is learning his craft from him, because it would be so sad for everybody to just be gone and that be a skill that's lost. But this little girl was mesmerized, and so he started talking to her. And as he was talking to her, I noticed he also had rolling pins and I can't even think what you call them. The noodle maker, it looks like a rolling pin, but it makes noodles as you roll them out, and just all type of things like that. And one of the things that I saw that he had was one of these, I call them pastry pins. It's not like a regular rolling pin. Of course, it has the handles on the end. This is an actual pastry pin for making pie crust, rolling out biscuits, dumplings, any type of pastries that you want to roll out. And I like them because you can get, you can move your hands to get the pressure where you want it on your pastry. And he had one that was in black walnut, but it was small. But the larger ones, they were in cherry. And so I got this one. It's made out of cherry. And I got home and I got to thinking, I forgot to ask what his name was, because, who doesn't know kids that would be interested in those type of toys? Plus, they'd be heirlooms for their children. And I got to looking online. Of course, everybody Googles everything. So I Googled and I kept looking until I tracked him down. And if you're interested in any type of rolling pins, pastry pins, handmade wooden toys, if you'll go online and look for Leon Hoffman. Now, this man has no idea who I am. He has no idea that I'm even telling you about him. But if you will go online and look for Leon Hoffman, Hoffman, and I think he's in Tilly, Arkansas. And he doesn't even have a website, I don't think, because I didn't find one. But it's, I think, under Shop Local or Local Shops or something like that is the name of the little web page. But it's where you can order his stuff through this website. And I saw I saw that on there, and it's like, thank goodness, I was able to find him, because, what great gifts it would be for children. And also, somebody setting up a new household or whatever, if they want to get into baking. Everybody needs a rolling pin. Even if it's to pound out, steaks or whatever. But I will not be using that to pound out steak. And what he also, if you have a wooden rolling pin or a pastry pin or any type of wooden kitchen item like this, he suggested using walnut oil. He said olive oils and other kitchen oils are too thick and sticky, and he said walnut oil is real thin and will soak into the wood better. So after a few uses, in order to preserve the wood longer, you just wipe it down with walnut oil and then wipe the oil back off, just so that way it'll soak in there and keep that wood moist, keep it from cracking, and just make this into an heirloom. So just wanted to share that with you. I do want you to know the festival was amazing. If you like large crowds and lots of things to look at, it was great. We went, me and my little sister and brother-in-law went to the fall festival last year. This spring one, though, was probably 5 times as large. There was just so much and so many there. But I enjoyed myself, but after 2 hours, 2 hours is my extent. I don't care what we're doing. We could go to Six Flags, and at the 2-hour mark, my brain says, I'm done, and I'm ready to go. So I'm not a whole lot of fun. If anybody was thinking about inviting me to extended activities, 2 hours, I'm out of there. Well, it's going to be just a few more minutes for the cookies. I just wanted to share that with you. So grab you something to drink, and before you know it, we'll be taking these cookies out of the oven. I have just taken these out of the oven, and I wanted to show you what they look like now. They didn't spread. They didn't fall apart. I haven't tried to take them off of here yet because I have the timer going again. The final instruction for this recipe says let them set exactly 7 minutes. Now, exactly was all capitalized, so I've got it set for 7 minutes, and then I will try to remove them from this pan. And I've got a towel over here waiting to put them on to finish cooling down, because it also said don't try to cover these or do anything to them until they have completely cooled. So I won't try to put these up, in a cookie jar or anything until they're completely cooled down. But we will try one just so we can see how they turned out. So let's let the timer count down, and then we'll try to remove them off to here and see how that works out. And it has been exactly 7 minutes. I'm not even going to try to use this because I think I'm going to just try, because these are so delicate. I say they're delicate. I'm just going to use my hands to move them over to this towel to finish cooling. And look how well they're holding together. I'm really surprised. I have to admit, I was going to show you, good or bad, how these turned out. And I have to say, I'm rather shocked, because I honestly thought because how crumbly it looked in the bowl, I thought these things were just going to go everywhere and it was just going to be a mess. But I honestly think the longer these set up, and they've almost cooled. You can see in 7 minutes I'm handling these and they're not hot. They are cooling rapidly, but I am going to let them cool until, I guess, after supper. I'll get my husband. He is a pecan fanatic, and if I don't hide the pecans, he eats them. So these happen to be bits, so he didn't want to mess with them. But I'm going to get him to taste test these and give you an honest evaluation of what he thinks, because I don't think he's ever had a cookie without flour in it. So I think I can pick up this pan. Yes, this pan's fine. This is the pan they cooked on, and you see how well it did not stick to this little mat here, and just how few crumbs. I would get more crumbs than that off of sugar cookies, so I am not dissatisfied at all with how this worked. I think these look amazing. Again, I'm shocked, but the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. So we will taste these here in a little bit when they've cooled completely off, and we'll let you know how they honestly turned out. So don't go away. All right, and here we are. We have got the cookies, and I've got my taste tester here.
I'd eat them.
Are they edible?
Mm-hmm.
Even without flour? No flour in them. Egg white, brown sugar, and pecans, and that's it.
They're supposed to have flour.
So, there you go. He couldn't tell that they didn't have flour. They're good cookies. He's got his thing of milk, so...
They're edible.
They're edible. So, that's high praise coming from him. So, anyway, I will have the recipe down in the description below. So if you want to try this, let me know how it turned out for you. As I said, I'm greatly surprised because I was not sure how they were going to turn out at first, but I'm happy with them. So
You can't ruin stuff with pecans.
You can't ruin stuff with pecans. All right. Well, thank you for watching. Hope y'all have a wonderful afternoon. We love y'all. Mountain Patriot Homestead, signing out.